Family isn't always the hand that catches you when you fall. Sometimes it's the hand that loosens the bolts on your chair, waits for the snap, and then steps into the picture. So the story shows them as the survivor, not the saboteur. I understood that one breath before I set fire to the Prescott name, and I learned something worse right after. The people who claim they built you will happily use you as kindling. I'm Nora Prescott, 31, St. Louis, modest brick house, squeaky porch, neighbors who wave because they actually know each other. In the city's version of my life, my family runs a major charitable foundation. We smile in ballroom lighting and hand out oversized checks. My mother is the flawless face of it all. Cold elegance, perfect posture, a voice that can sound like warmth while it tightens a leash. My sister Vanessa is the golden child, always in the right dress, always drifting toward applause. My father is the quiet peacemaker, the kind man who reads the paper while my mother rearranges the world. Inside our house, normal meant Vanessa got praise and I got work. I learned early that my job was to make Vanessa's life easier. If she spilled something, I blotted. If she forgot a deadline, I reminded. If she wanted to help with charity as a teenager, I wrote the note cards for her speech. My mother would run a critical eye over my work, then hand it to Vanessa with a smile and say, "Now you sound like yourself." And I told myself it was fine. Some families had chores. Ours had roles. At the foundation, I was operations director, not the one in the spotlight, just the one who made sure the lights turned on. I handled budgets, grant restrictions, audit trails, compliance. I was the load-bearing wall, invisible until it cracks. Donors shook my hand and forgot my name 5 seconds later. My mother introduced me as our numbers girl, like I was a function, not a person. Then she'd turn and introduce Vanessa as the future. My father used to catch my eye during those moments. He'd give me a small look, apology, affection, something, like he was whispering, "I see you." It kept me loyal longer than it should have. The first crack appeared in a quarterly report. I was preparing our filings for the state when I noticed education grant funds, restricted money meant for teens, moving out in neat chunks to a consulting firm I'd never approved. V. Lane Strategy. Lane is Vanessa's middle name. The contract was signed with her handwriting. I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for my brain to produce a harmless explanation. A vendor? A subcontractor? A clerical error? But the payments had the rhythm of intention. Every month. The same day. The same amount. Just under the threshold that triggers automatic review. Someone had planned this. I walked the printouts to my mother's office. She didn't look up at first. She was signing Gala invitations with a pen that cost more than my monthly groceries. Her office smelled like expensive candles and control. "These transfers," I said, keeping my voice professional because that was my shield. "They're coming out of restricted grants. If the state audits..." My mother finally lifted her eyes. "They won't. It's not about whether. It's about what happens if they do. This is misuse." She set her pen down like she was putting a scalpel on a tray. "Those are image expenses. Image expenses can't be paid from restricted education funds." Her smile was thin. "Smile, Nora. Don't draw attention." That was her favorite command. The one she used when she needed me to swallow something. Then she added quietly, "Your staff. Don't reach for things that aren't yours." I left her office with my face hot and my hands cold. In the hallway, our receptionist looked up with a polite smile, the kind you give people you assume are safe. I smiled back, because my mother was right about one thing. Attention gets you killed in slow ways. That night, I logged into our internal system to trace the approvals. I expected sloppy paperwork. What I found made my hands go numb. The justifications attached to the transfers, memos, impact narratives, compliance notes, were written in my style, and they were filed under my credentials. Time-stamped edits, after midnight. Username, mine. I pulled the access logs. The IP address pointed straight to my parents' house. Someone had logged in as me, created fake documentation, and wrapped the theft in my name like a gift I never asked for. If the state came, the headline wouldn't be "Beloved Philanthropist Misused Funds." It would be "Operations Director Falsified Records." Me. Prison ready. Convenient. I sat there in my kitchen, the only sound the refrigerator humming, and watched my own signature become a weapon. I thought of the kids in our program, quiet teenagers who'd written thank you letters in messy handwriting. I thought of how my mother spoke about them on stage, voice trembling with practiced compassion. I thought of the way restricted funds worked. You don't borrow them. You don't shift them. You don't get creative. You either follow the rules or you pay. And I knew who my mother expected to pay. I changed my passwords, turned on two-factor, printed everything, started building a file with the kind of dull label people ignore, Q2 compliance. I asked our IT director for deeper reports for the audit trail, and he paused like he knew more than he wanted to admit. You want remote access details? He asked. Complete, I said. IP, device IDs, timestamps, everything. His eyes flicked toward my mother's office, then back to me. Okay, he said carefully. Just email me the request. I understood the subtext. He wanted it documented, so no one could say he did it for fun. That was when I realized I wasn't alone in seeing the rot. People just didn't want to touch it barehanded. 2 days later, my mother called me into her office again. She didn't bother with invitations now. She had the tone she used when she expected obedience. I'm told you changed your system settings, she said. I met her gaze. I secured my account. Someone accessed it. My mother didn't blink. Stop being dramatic. It wasn't dramatic, I said. It was midnight logins from your house. Silence stretched. My mother's smile returned, smooth and merciless. Nora, she said, you're tired. You've always had anxiety. Remember college? All those late nights? Don't embarrass yourself. My throat tightened. That was another of her tools. If you complain, you're unstable. If you protest, you're emotional. If you show evidence, you're paranoid. I nodded because I was done arguing for my own reality. Understood, I said, and walked out while she still thought she'd won. That afternoon, I cornered Vanessa in the green room before a luncheon. I expected arrogance. I found her shaking on a couch with mascara streaking down her cheek and a pill bottle open on the table. What is this? I asked, holding up the V-Lane contract. Vanessa stared at her signature and went blank. I signed it, she whispered. Mom told me it was branding, a platform. She said donors like a story. You have no firm, I said. I don't do anything, she snapped, then swallowed hard like she'd bitten her own tongue. She gives me packets. I sign. If I ask questions, she says I'm ungrateful. Her breath hitched. My dress doesn't fit right. If she sees... Vanessa's voice thinned. She'll make that face. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was pathetic, and because I suddenly understood that my sister wasn't a mastermind. She was a mascot with anxiety pills. Someone used my credentials from the house, I said. They're building a case to blame me. Vanessa's eyes widened, genuine fear. Mom wouldn't. But the words sounded like prayer, not fact. I watched her shake, watched her chase approval like oxygen, and something in me hardened. Not against her, against the whole system that made us beg. That night I drove to my parents' place anyway. I needed one person to be real. One person to look at the evidence and say, this is wrong. I wanted my father to finally be more than wallpaper. We sat at the kitchen table, same tile floor, same polished silence. I slid the logs toward him. He read. His face tightened. For a second, hope rose in me. Then he poured himself whiskey. Ice clinked in the glass like a verdict. Nora, he said gently, Vanessa won't survive this. I blinked. What are you talking about? A trial. The press. Your sister is fragile. So am I said, sharper than I meant. He flinched, then softened again the way weak men soften when they're about to ask you to suffer for them. You're strong. You understand the system. If you take responsibility, say you made an error in the reports, we can hire the best lawyer. You'll get a deal. Your mother's health. Our reputation. Take the fall. My mouth tasted like metal. You're asking me to go to prison, I said slowly, so Vanessa can keep her dresses and Mother can keep her speeches. He reached across the table like he could physically pull me back into obedience. We'll take care of you. Like you always did? I asked, and the bitterness surprised even me. His eyes flickered with guilt, then steadied into something worse. Acceptance. Do it for the family, he said, voice low. This foundation is bigger than any one mistake. And there it was. In his world, my life was a mistake to be managed. Something in me went calm. Not peace, precision. "There is no family," I said, and walked out into the cold night. In my car, I sat with the steering wheel under my palms and let myself shake. Then I stopped shaking. Then I started planning. I didn't want a dramatic revenge. I wanted a clean cut, a record, a trail so undeniable that no amount of charisma could smooth it over. I spent the next week building my report, nights on my couch with my laptop, the blue glow reflecting on my walls, transaction spreadsheets, restricted fund regulations, screenshots, login logs, a timeline. I wrote it like a prosecutor, dry, factual, impossible to romanticize. Every page felt like peeling skin off something infected. I met with an employment attorney in a nondescript office over a sandwich I couldn't swallow. "If you resign," she said, "do it in writing. If you're a whistleblower, you need to document intent and evidence. And Nora, don't threaten, don't posture, just disclose." Disclosure. That word sounded so clinical for something that would shatter my life. The night before the gala, I sat on my porch and listened to the city breathe. Cars in the distance, a siren far away, someone laughing 2 houses down. Ordinary life. The kind of life I'd never been allowed to consider because my mother's world insisted we were exceptional. I drafted 50 emails, board members, state auditors, major donors. I added subject lines that would make them open it. I attached the PDF. I wrote 1 sentence in the body because anything more would read like drama. "Please see attached formal whistleblower report regarding restricted fund misuse and compromised credentials. Effective immediately, I resign my position." My finger hovered over send until my hand stopped trembling. The gala arrived like a blade, polished, sharp, meant to cut without getting dirty. Crystal chandeliers, white linens, the kind of room designed to make people feel noble while they ate filet mignon. My mother in silver, Vanessa in black velvet, donors smiling like they were purchasing virtue by the plate. I stood near the service corridor, where the staff moved and the important people pretended not to see them. My mother took the stage and spoke about legacy, compassion, lifting up the next generation. Then she reached for Vanessa like she was presenting a crown. "At our charity gala," she said, glowing, "I want to honor the heart of our foundation." Vanessa stepped into the spotlight. The room erupted in applause. I watched my sister's lips curve into a smile that looked rehearsed, then watched her eyes dart once, quickly, to my mother, checking, "Am I doing it right?" My mother kissed her cheek for the cameras. The flash lit their faces like they were painted. Then my mother descended, still smiling, and crossed straight to me. Without lowering her voice, she shoved a tray of used champagne flutes into my hands. "Clear these," she murmured. "Smile. Don't draw attention." The glasses were sticky with lipstick, warm from strangers' mouths. I felt, absurdly, like I was holding proof of how many people believed in my mother. Vanessa followed, chin lifted, eyes glossy with that desperate hunger for approval. She glanced at the tray and then at me, and her mouth curved into the familiar smirk. "You're just support," she said. I nodded, obedient, small. The perfect wall. And inside my clutch, I tapped 1 button. Send. 50 emails shot out in one silent burst. Board members, state auditors, and the top donors sitting in that room. Attached, a 40-page PDF with transaction records, restricted fund statutes, login logs, IP traces, screenshots of forged justifications, and my resignation effective immediately. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then phones lit up across the ballroom like a field of fireflies. A murmur swelled, sharp and fast. "Wait, is that them?" People leaned over screens. Faces changed. A woman in pearls covered her mouth. A man in a tuxedo laughed once, not amused, more like he'd been punched. A board member went pale. Someone else stopped chewing mid-bite. My mother's smile froze on her face like it had been lacquered. She looked around, calculating, then her eyes found me, and for the first time I saw panic flash through her composure. Lawyers moved in. The chairman leaned close, voice tight. The state auditor I recognized from past meetings stared at his screen, and then at my mother like he couldn't believe he'd ever shaken her hand. Vanessa stepped toward my mother, searching her face for the next instruction. My mother didn't protect us. She did what she always did when cornered. She chose a sacrifice. She gasped theatrically and turned on Vanessa. "Vanessa, how could you?" she cried, loud enough to split the room. You stole from children? Vanessa froze, eyes wide. Mom! But my mother kept going, pouring outrage over her like it was cleansing water instead of gasoline. The golden child's smile shattered. Vanessa started to choke on her own breath. Then she dropped to her knees, shaking, mascara running, a panic attack unfolding in front of the city's elite like a curtain ripped down. People stepped back. People stared. People filmed. Charity turned into spectacle in under a minute. A hand grabbed my wrist. The chairman, face gray. Nora, he hissed. You have to stay. You understand operations. We'll remove your mother. You can lead. He said it like it was a reward. Like I should be grateful for the chance to hold up a building that had tried to crush me. All I heard was the same old sentence. Support doesn't get to leave. I'm just support, I said calmly. He blinked. What? I resigned, I said. Figure out your own structure. I walked to Vanessa. She clutched my sleeve like a drowning person, breath ragged. I didn't know, she rasped. I know, I said, because I did. She hadn't built the trap. She'd just helped decorate it. I took off my blazer and draped it over her shoulders, blocking cameras, blocking stairs. My mother watched us with horror, not at Vanessa's pain, but at my refusal to stand where she'd placed me. Come on, I whispered to Vanessa. We're leaving. Vanessa's eyes flicked to my mother, desperate, still trained like a dog. My mother looked away first. Not her, I said softly. Me. We walked out through the service corridor, past the clatter of plates and the smell of bleach, leaving behind chandeliers and applause and the sound of an empire collapsing. In the parking garage, Vanessa leaned against my car and sobbed until her body went limp. I didn't tell her it would be okay. I didn't have that kind of lie in me anymore. I just held her steady until she could breathe. 6 months later, the foundation was under state oversight. The Prescott name came down from the building like a scab peeled off. Donors issued polite statements and vanished. My mother stayed home with lawyers and shame. My father filed for divorce to protect his assets, as if money could patch cowardice. Vanessa went to rehab, the real kind, the kind that doesn't care about your last name. I left philanthropy entirely. I took a compliance job at a nonprofit that didn't need galas to prove it cared. I slept without waking up in cold fear. I learned how quiet can feel when it isn't enforced. One Sunday morning, I sat on my porch with coffee cooling between my hands. The screen door creaked, and Vanessa stepped outside, hair pulled back, face bare, body softer, eyes steadier. She sat a step below me, close enough to share the sun, but not close enough to pretend we were healed. I'm sorry, she said finally, voice small and unpolished. I nodded once. Not forgiveness, not punishment, just acknowledgement. We sat in silence, and for the first time, that silence wasn't a threat. It was space. All my life I thought support meant being invisible, swallowing other people's sins so their mirrors stayed clean. But support isn't decoration, it's structure. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step back, let the rotten building collapse and breathe, because at least the air is yours.